Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey for the last several years. Thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big thanks to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind all of our logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror and Halloween genre, but does incredible commission pieces of any sort. So, of course, tonight, we had to play around again. Our guest could not make it, and we basically just improvised. So we decided that we would have our open mic this evening, and with tomorrow being Thanksgiving in the USA, we're just going to play a rerun. And we'll get into that all at the end of the show. So what are we going to be talking about tonight? Well, open discussion, the unexplained, strange location events, group disappearances, and of course, Wayne Mallows is here to join me. So we know that's going to be a whole lot of fun. And I see everybody's chiming in. You guys have to be a bit patient with me because I'm seeing everybody's handles. I'm not really seeing everybody by name. Some of you guys are pretty obvious. So thank you for that. Hello, everybody. Kevin, hi. Beck girl, Annette, always great to see you. Patsy, hello. You're one of our favorite as well. Kathy, hi Kathy. So Heidi, hello Heidi. Okay, I think we're getting there. Yeah, we're there. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my compadre and we're going to get the show started. Hello. Winnie.
Winnie Maliski. There I am.
There we
the
are.
One, the only, the original.
There we are. I know. There we go. So yeah, we people don't realize how much we actually sit there and have conversations about different things. And for us, it's pretty much like a regular part of life. We basically catch all kinds of things. But again, with that being said, there's a lot of stuff that we don't cover, right? So this is going to be one of those things right there. So tonight, and what reminded me to include this was we watched a documentary the other night. And sorry, I had to, perfect timing, when a family member just messaged you at a time when you just like, stop it. Anyhow,
I don't have to worry about that. My family doesn't.
I know. We watched a documentary on the Dyatlov Pass. You guys have heard us talk about this. I mean, myself and Joe, and we've mentioned it on the show. So let me just give a bit of a quick. I'm not going to go through everything here because we could be here 15 minutes just with me reading this thing. So on the first night of February 1959, 9, I guess, ski hikers mysteriously died in the mountains of Russia. They had been on a 200-mile hike. I can't even fathom that. But it was supposed to take them, like I said, like it was like 23, or they left on the 23rd, I think it was. So it was several days. Anyway, they started out as a group of 10, and one had to turn back, luckily for him. All indications show that the group settled in their camp up on a slope, enjoyed dinner, got ready for bed, but something happened that night, and the group basically dispersed, never to return to their camp. Now, on February the 26th, researchers found the camp, all these abandoned tents, and they appear to have been ripped open from the inside out. So it's not like somebody was sort of trying to get in to get to them. There were footprints all over the place. Some were wearing socks, some had a single shoe, some were bare feet, and they all made their way out towards the edge of the nearby woods. They found the first two bodies that were found were shoeless, wearing only their underwear. One body showed signs of blunt force trauma consistent with a brutal assault. Another had third-degree burns. One had been vomiting blood. There was a missing tongue. Some of them had their chests and skulls smashed open. Like, I mean, it was graphic, really graphic. And the mystery still continues. There have been theories that range anywhere from UFOs to a Yeti attack or gravity anomalies. One filmmaker suggested infrasound. So, I mean, there are a whole lot of different scenarios. And what makes it even more interesting is that on February the 12th, 2021, so fairly recent on the grand scheme of when this event happened, a group of 8 tourists vanished in the Russian mountains near the Dyatlov Pass, and they were paying homage to the site to pay their respects to the Dyatlov 9. And they did not check in, nor did they leave at their designated time. And they still, at least as of the time of this, the time of this date, it had only been maybe like a few months when we actually talked about this on the Gray Zone. And from that point on, they were still missing. So that's something I would have to have a little peek at. But this documentary was interesting. It really went, because there's been a lot of them, about this, where they've tried to like debunk a whole lot of things, as they should. And other things were sort of just popping in, and we were kind of like, we didn't get all this, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There was definitely more information this time around. It's a curiosity, but it's been my experience that's when you're looking at a mystery of sort of this magnitude, it's not one answer. It's not one definitive answer. You're going to find the problem has been created by a number of other problems. So it's not just, it was an avalanche, or it was a Yeti attack, or it was a Russian missile test gone wrong. It's going to be a combination of multiple things that created the end result. That's where I'm at with that. So, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, like, I found it interesting because up until now, there's been talk about, some of the people there. First of all, I thought it was all of them. All of the bodies that were recovered had trace amounts of radiation on their clothing. This one, because the files are now open, right? It's gone so many years. They've opened the files, and they said only 2 of the people had radiation amounts on their clothing, but those 2 people actually worked in areas of Russia that worked with uranium. So they would have trace amounts of radiation on their clothing. So, okay. So that kind of put that to rest a little bit, right? But the other thing that came up that was interesting, one crime investigator, she said there was abrasions on 2 of the victims' wrists and ankles. She said that's indicative of somebody being tied up. That never came out either, but the other ones didn't have it. So, like, I don't know who would tie you up in the middle of the Russian winterland. It would be crazy up there. I think they said it was like minus 20 Celsius.
Yeah, it was pretty it was pretty brutal. And everything was like pretty horrific. So,
I mean, the one woman said it perfectly, because we were saying it was the KGB and trying to silence them from witnessing a mission gone wrong, or they were concerned that they were defectors because 2 of them were working in classified areas of nuclear development. So the KGB was concerned that we've got people heading for the border, and with information. So they were concerned. So when the bodies turned up, they were like, "Whew, okay." So they weren't defectors, right?
Mhm.
But the one woman, she said it perfectly. She said, if the KGB was involved and they were looking at silencing these people, there would be no bodies ever found. Because
That's true.
if there's no bodies, there's no case, right? They
Mhm.
would never be found. So the fact that they were found, and the way they were found, if it
Mhm.
was a hit, like if they're saying it was a murder, if it was a murder, it was the botched murder you could ever have made. It was a
Mhm.
mess, just a mess from the word go.
Right. What are your thoughts on the group of 8 that disappeared in February of
Never even heard of it,
20?
so I don't know.
Yeah.
That's news to me. You dropped that bomb on me today. I'm like, what? Never heard of it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, yeah, thank you.
But it sort of makes you wonder, is there something about the area itself, again, maybe, is it near underground? Is it near a base? Is it near a bunker? Is it near, some like place that's considered sensitive? Um,
Well,
it's
it
not,
is a place that's sensitive. The Mansi were up there. That's a
yeah.
sacred place for them. And they were talking about the other group that I think starts with an H. I can't remember it. Like it sounds like Haiti, but it wasn't.
Mm,
There was a rival tribe up there that had sort of branched off on their own, and
mhm,
there was a group of these almost nomadic tribe people that were not super friendly toward the Mansi and not super friendly towards Russia soldiers, especially.
mhm.
So if you happened upon them and they figured you were trespassing on holy land, they could do some damage on you. But then again, I look at the kind of damage that was done to these individuals. I mean, I'm looking at photographs of the one fella who had his chest crushed,
Yeah.
and the coroner basically just said he fell and froze to death. This guy's rib cage was
Mhm.
flat from
Yeah.
his collarbones to his sternum. Then he had a few ribs left. Flat.
That's
Okay,
not
like that.
that's not a
That's
fall,
not a
I don't
fall.
think.
That's like having a truck land on you,
Yeah.
right? And the other woman who had her chest crushed, it wasn't quite as bad as that, but it
Mhm.
was like folded in on itself as if you were squeezed from the sides first and then pushed in, because all her ribs broke down the breastbone, and those ribs were broke in such a way with such pressure that they punctured her heart.
Yeah.
Right? Again, not
It's
indicative
brutal.
of a fall. They're saying, well, if you fell from a great height, if you were taken up in a helicopter, you would have landed on snow, right? You would have to go up so high
Yeah.
and land flat on your chest on a rock to cave your chest into that degree.
But to make the comment, well, if you were taken up in a helicopter, if you're taken up in a helicopter,
Mm-hmm.
what is the point? And where would you have landed that helicopter? Up on a
Well,
mountain?
they landed helicopters when the rescue people came in. It's
Okay,
all
so
possible. It
there's
could have been
space, yeah,
done,
sure.
but like, what are they doing? Like, why are they taking you up there to see if you're going to talk and then throw your friend out of the helicopter?
Right.
To see if you're going to talk. Anything is possible. I mean,
Yeah.
my personal favorite theory is that they caught the last segment of film on that fella's camera was a blurry streak of lights that go
That's
through
what
the dark
Kathy's
sky.
saying. Yeah, it looked
Yeah.
like a
So,
Bigfoot or a Yeti. Yeah,
well, no, no,
near the
that's
tree.
not what I'm talking about. I'm talking
Oh,
about
this
the
is
lights in the
different
night
now.
sky.
Okay, so we'll address that one shortly
Yeah,
then.
the
Okay,
one that I used to think that was a Yeti too, but then the woman was saying when you look
they
at
clarified that.
the roll of film, they're all horsing around in every frame. So that just looks more like one of the hikers like doing the peekaboo thing around the tree.
Mhm.
So I've that sort of let that go. But the last frame on the last roll of film that was still in the camera had these 4 or 5 lights in the sky in a semicircle like that, very out of focus. But you got to remember they're running. It's not like cameras today where you can go.
Mm.
It was like chick like that, really slow shutter speed because it's dark. So you would see
Mm.
that as it fell.
Mhm.
My thoughts on the whole thing, if I have one, and conspiracies aside, I think they did do a missile test and something went kaboom, like really loud, probably scared the bejesus out of these people, and they didn't know what was happening. Is it an earthquake? Is it an avalanche? What's this big flash? What's going on? Let's get out of the tent, and they book it. But I also think that sonic boom, whatever it was, probably set the wildlife on its head, And if there is a family of Yeti, a family of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call them up there, in that area, they would be super on high alert, protective. All of a sudden, you've got like people running towards their habitat after this big bang. Well, that would explain a crushed chest to that degree. That would explain pulverized skulls on one side, like one blow to the side of the head, the guy's head's caved in. You know, it wasn't a hammer. It was like the size of a grapefruit that caved this guy's head in, right? You know, so a lot of force was delivered to these people.
Yeah, Heidi says there have there been cases that state a Bigfoot or Yeti doing that to someone? I haven't. Honestly, I don't believe Bigfoot could do that. It was a scapegoat theory. Well, there are actually cases
In
in
Alaska.
Alaska,
Yeah.
yeah, where the Bigfoots were very aggressive to the point where the indigenous people left the area because people were turning up dead all the time. But look what they were doing to the environment, and they figured that this was the issue. As far as here, all I could say is if they were frightened, if there were, if there were anything going off, these lights in the air, or, explosions, or if they were testing, weapons like they say they may have been, then again, it's another theory. I could see how it would put them on edge and put them into panic mode, not so much out of malice, but out of panic.
No, I think they're if they have a family, if you have
Yeah.
a group of them, and they're starting to learn that these
Yeah.
beings like have a family circle, they have a family hierarchy. They run in, not in packs, but they live in groups, and they're almost like nomadic travelers, right? They don't live in
Yeah.
caves like the early, like the what's the word now? It's gone. Neanderthals did,
Mhm.
but they come across and they move around, and they might have just been hunkered down for the night because it was a bitterly cold night,
Mhm.
and then there's this colossal boom. I mean, if somebody bursts into my house, my kids are here, you're here, like I'm going down fighting. I'm not going to be there. Oh, excuse me, hi, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
these people, they're scared, and their primal, instinct is to protect, and
Mhm.
you're running right at them, they're going to kill you. It's like anything.
Yeah.
Most bears don't want a conflict, but if you come at them, they'll come at you hard. A
Mhm.
raccoon will come at you hard.
Yeah. That's true. Mark says apparently there was a bunker up there. They found some steel doors, if he remembers correctly from a documentary he had seen. The one
I'd never heard that, but it could be.
Yeah, they didn't mention that. This was a new documentary that was on that we watched the last few days ago, and there was information we had never heard.
Mm-mm.
And what I liked about it was the woman who was speaking primarily was Russian, and she had, relocated to the US. So she was still speaking freely, but she was still being logical, not finger pointing sort of thing, but just still, giving some very direct information.
Mm-hmm. There was other stuff that was, there was the Russian criminologist, and she said,
Mhm.
if I took this case
Yes.
without knowing it, if I didn't know this case,
Yes.
and someone just plopped this on my desk, but I'm
Mhm.
retired now, but she goes, if this just landed on my desk with
Yeah.
all these victims, and I looked at the autopsy reports and went, bump a bump a bump through it, she
Mhm.
goes, I would talk to my senior supervisor, says all these people were murdered.
See?
She goes, there's no way that this is an avalanche. There is no way this is
Mhm.
any kind of natural occurrence. It's impossible that this was a natural occurrence of any sort.
Now, didn't they have an FBI, a guy from the
Yeah,
FBI
he said the
speaking
same
as well?
thing.
Said the
Yeah, he
same
said the
thing.
same thing. He said,
Yeah.
looking at the volume of evidence, he said there is no way you can chalk this up to a natural occurrence of any kind.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
See? So
but
that's
why they were killed, that's the mystery.
that's what they're
That's like,
saying. What did they stumble on, or, who stumbled onto them?
yeah.
Because they were even talking about, how that they're saying, no, they cut their way out from inside the tents, but were they not
That was
disputing that?
Yeah, they were disputing that because
Yeah.
the criminologist was just saying like they're looking at the cut marks. She goes, I don't care about the cut marks because the cut marks, they're just a line. She goes, I want to see where the point went through.
Yeah.
And she goes, I'm on the fence. She goes, sorry, I gotta just get rid of this thing off the screen.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence with it. She goes, there are some that look like they're point out and some look like they're point in. So she's like, I don't put money on it that it's 100%. But the thing that's interesting too is that the the guy that was in charge of the case, like the lead detective on the case, at one point, like he's really pressing because things aren't adding up in his mind. You can see it. Like he's
Mhm.
asking questions of his employees, his guys below him, and they're coming up dry with stuff, and he's like, okay, well, yeah, I want answers. And then one day his supervisor comes in and just goes, okay, this is what you're going to say. This is what happened, and we're going to close this case. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And he didn't like it, but the fellow that was doing the interview said, he's an older gentleman now, and he said, he's an officer who takes orders from somebody above him.
Yeah.
That's the end of it. He said he had to do what he was told. But
Mm.
here's the kicker for me that reeks of like conspiracy above all else, right? Is that after the autopsies were done, and they were all quick. I mean, they were like boom, 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 all the way through. Everyone died of hypothermia, case closed. They wanted to bury these kids 200 miles
Yes.
away from where their loved ones are.
Mhm.
Why?
Mhm.
Why 200 miles away from their hometown?
And then their
And there
family
was
was
such
outraged.
an uproar. There was
Yeah.
they tried to do it quiet.
Yeah.
It got out, someone leaked it out. This was going to happen. And there was like pandemonium. They figured there'd be a couple of protesters. There was thousands of people in the streets just freaking out, right? So they were like, okay, that got out. We can't do that. So that's the end of that. So
Yeah. So
they made a little a huge monument actually in their
yeah.
hometown, right? So,
Wow.
and that was that.
Yeah, that's terrible. Mark says, he goes, I think they came across some steel doors and were hearing a low humming sound. This info may have been erased.
I'm sure it was, if that was because I've never ever heard that, Mark, ever. But that would, that would tell.
I mean, here's where I with this humming sound sort of thing. Like when I was in Hoyabachi Forest, way up on this mountain, it was the same idea. This droning, humming sound that went on, and there wasn't a lot of, unlike Dyatlov, I'm sure there was a lot of wildlife up there, but you didn't see any wildlife. And it's the part of the forest that we were in, the part with the circle and such. It's just like, so I don't know. I mean, it's a great place. And it was under a no-fly zone, we found out after that. It would be very curious. Obviously not under no-fly zone. If you had me rescue, obviously we're coming in. But if they were seeing something in the sky, there was definitely something there. So was it military? Was it, this is where they're saying possibly UFOs, UAPs, because of the lights that were seen in the sky after the fact.
I mean, two of these guys, they actually made it into the woods. They actually got far enough. Like that was like, I think it was 0.9 of a mile. So you're talking a mile through heavy snow and -20 in your shorts. Like you're going to be pretty cold.
Bare
They got a
feet,
fire
some of
started.
them. Yeah.
They got a fire started. They found evidence, and the investigators are saying we found evidence of a significant fire. So okay, so now you've made it out of danger, and you've got a significant fire going. You're not going to die. Right? Okay, so you've got this going, you're in a forest, there's lots of trees, there's lots of branches, and they found them dead, huddled together where this fire was. I mean, their socks were singed, some of their legs were singed. Other people had enough clothing on them. They had like significant clothing on them compared to those two guys, but their pant legs and their socks and shoes were burned. They had singe marks, significant singe marks. So did they make it to the fire as well? And these guys, some of the guys had like defensive wounds on their fists. They were fighting back against somebody. They had all skin knuckles and things like that. You don't skin the back of your hand falling. You land on your hands. You don't land on your knuckles. You just don't. It is a mind buster. It really is.
Yeah, I'm looking while you're talking for an update on the recent the recent Dyatlov disappearances. So this is a group of 8 tourists, like I said, disappeared 2021. They were finally found safe.
Oh, there we go. Okay, good. Perfect.
Yeah, they were. So at the time that we had seen this, it wasn't, again, it could have been weeks or months from that time, but very interesting, and I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I mean, I think this is going to be one of those mysteries that will remain unsolved unless somebody, comes clear. I mean, all, the professionals have chimed in, the criminologists and stuff have chimed in, and they've just said, no, this is not a thing. This was murder.
Yeah.
And
Of some kind or the other.
well, and they did suspect possibly this rogue group that had been
Mhm.
living in the area, who did not get along well with the local indigenous people of that area either. Like, they pretty much kept to themselves. They were known to be, you know, you know, hooligans, shall we say,
Yeah,
without.
just like rogue is the perfect word, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
again, it's just I just look at the damage. I mean, you got to remember too, what Heidi was saying about, I don't think Bigfoot would do that. In
Mhm,
1959, right? I'm
mhm,
sure our
mhm.
governments, our military were more than aware that there were massive bipedals walking around up in
Yeah.
the various places. It's the public that's
Mhm.
not allowed to know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they went down there and went, "Oh my God, this is a Yeti attack." Okay, well then we have to just cover this all up because
Yeah.
we have an agenda to follow, and that's not part of the agenda release program. So
No, that's true. That's
they would
true.
never ever release. Oh yeah, 9 people were killed by a Yeti. All good. Now the news.
Yeah,
It's not going to
it's
happen.
frightening. It's frightening. But I mean, I think if anything, you can have the most gentle being, whether it be a human being, whether it be an animal, whether it be, in this case, a Yeti. If you are startled or you are panicked and there's things going around and you're either frightened for yourself or for your group, your family, whatever the case may be, you will react, and not necessarily in a good way.
You want to see overreaction? Go on YouTube and look up animals at Halloween. And you see things like Bambi just eating some chocolates out of a bowl and a thing pops up. Well, Bambi takes out the 9-foot witch that's cackling and beats her to death on the front lawn.
One of those big air things, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it pops up and goes, "Ah!" Bambi
Bambi not
takes
so
the down.
friendly.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Bambi's violent.
Bambi's
Like I mean
down. Yeah,
extremely violent. So now if
yeah.
you take something that's like, I don't know, 9 to 12 feet tall, that's 700 to 800 pounds, who has all
Mhm.
of a sudden been startled,
Right.
I don't know. I think overreaction could be a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, very possible.
Mm.
Very possible. Okay, well, we're gonna move along to the next thing. Um, so getting into, because again, we'll talk about the missing 411 disappearances in America's wildlands and forests. There's an estimated, and again, this was at the time of research. Okay, so I've talked about this before. At the time of research, which was probably just maybe about 3 years ago. Okay, I'm sure it's increased since then, but there was an estimated 1,600 people that have been missing to this point. The most reliable information of missing people seems to come from Bigfoot hunters. They launched a database of wildland disappearances that had occurred under mysterious circumstances. And according to Paul Pallades, I believe, I could be butchering that, and shame on me if I am, the founder of the North American Bigfoot Search, most people tend to disappear in the late afternoon and during or before severe weather. When bodies do get found, they are often in areas that have already been searched without clothes or shoes, and hypothermia being ruled out. So, what's alarming is that disembodied human feet, some with shoes on, will wash up on the shores of British Columbia, Washington State, and pretty regularly. Some will show up solo, others in pairs. One 3-year-old child who went missing. If you guys have seen the documentaries, this is one that they definitely talk about. The 3-year-old child went missing in rural North Carolina. The temperatures had dropped below freezing. It was raining, and yet 3 days later, he was found alive. What made no sense was that the child was a quarter mile from where he went missing, and the family puzzled as to how did he end up 400 feet in elevation in bare feet. They were convinced he had been taken by a Bigfoot. Bigfoot is blamed for many of the disappearances. UFO abductions are another theory. Portals are another theory. It's believed that the amount of missing people far exceeds 1,600 and remain missing on public lands under circumstances that are beyond explanation. So police noted that there were mysterious pulsing lights in the sky above one of the lakes while investigating. Northern lights are common in the area. You don't really think much about it. Nearby villages reported to police that there were numerous sightings of strange lights in the sky. Oh, like up in certain areas. So when you get in, there's a whole lot of information that pertains to that. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on that one?
It's, for every disappearance, there's numerous possibilities to it. The ones that I find fascinating are when you're traveling with a group, of 6 people who are seasoned.
Yeah.
Seasoned hikers, seasoned woods people. They're not their first time out. They're not Wall Street people going up there for their first time run through the woods. And one guy goes ahead, 25 yards, 30 yards. And he's calling back to his friends going, come on, you gonna let the old man beat you? And they laugh, they get their gear, they look up and he's not there. That, okay, where did he go? They searched that mountainside, helicopters, people on horseback. They never found this guy. Where did that guy go? He didn't just fall off the trail and finish up in a ravine somewhere. That guy's gone. And there's lots of natural reasons that people disappear in the woods. Lots of them. There was one in BC that happened, about 8 years ago. A jogger on a well-known trail. She's just jogging. And a rogue bear came up, and chased her. And she climbed a tree and this thing got her. Ripped her arms off and left her body up in the tree and kept going back for snacks. There's lots of reasons that people go missing. It's just when things like they turn up miles from where they should be. One kid, he walked, I can't tell you how far he walked from the mountainous area down through valleys and streams and everything else. This kid was like 6 or 7, and it went cold. He was gone for days, and he finished up in a farmer's field. His jacket was all torn from the barbed wire and everything else. And he's like, well, what's your name? The kid could talk. He's fine. But it had been freezing for those days. And he comes back, and other than I'm a little cold and hungry and my clothes are wet, perfectly okay. Well, we're talking 7, 8 miles. And they'd searched all that area. They'd searched the entire area. Dogs, horses, guys on quads, helicopters with infrared looking for heat signatures in the woods. Zero. Then this kid just meanders out through a farmer's field and, okay, where was this kid? How could they miss this kid?
There's a situation where people are walking together. You're going down a trail, you got people behind you, right? So you're just heading up on the trail because it's a narrow trail. And you turn around, you're talking to the person, they're talking to you, and literally within seconds,
they're not there.
Moments, they turn around, that person is completely gone, and they're looking around, they're like,
well, they think it's a joke at first because you're talking and they're not answering, and you're like, what's wrong? A cat got your tongue kind of thing. Oh, don't be mad at me. Come on, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
And you turn around, they're gone. And they're like, not funny.
Yeah.
Okay, come out. I'm sorry. Come out,
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they can't find them. They can't find them at all.
Yeah. See, it's wiki. When you think about it, it's just like there was a story of a mother. She had her son with her. She goes sit in the car. She had forgot. I guess he'd been there earlier. She forgot a backpack, and then she goes up and she could see the car. Car was locked. There's nobody around. Pretty desolate. She could see the car. He could see her, and she comes back down. He's gone. He's gone, and it's a wide open area.
The car's still locked, though.
Car was still locked.
That's the thing. The car's still locked. So let that kid get out of the car. He's smart enough to lock the door and run away.
Yeah. There's just, these are just some of the stories that float around, and you ask yourself, we live in a pretty incredible place. There are portals everywhere. And I have to go back to the different theories that they have, with entrances and portals into inner Earth, and we'll have to do a show on that because there's just
That'd
so
be fun.
much. It would be fun. There's a lot
Yeah.
there. There's so much information there that, I mean, you could probably do a two-parter on it. But let's just go back to one location. And you guys, if you saw the segment that I did with Daryl Denton, and you guys will have to catch. I'm their moderator host, so you get to watch me on Two Real Cryptids every other week right now, with Ron Moorhead and Daryl Denton. But they're going to be talking about the Dogman experience in Land Between the Lakes. Land Between the Lakes is this crazy place. It's a historical place. Indigenous had villages there. People settled there and lived there for a really long time. A lot of really ancient settlers. And there was always just a lot of death. And turns out, big dogman community, big Bigfoot community. And they're not very friendly on an average. And they're known to crossbreed as well. And then there's other cryptids. And it's one of these areas, it got so bad that they totally shut down the town, turned it into a national park where people could go and stay there. Things kept happening. Then witnesses started coming forward and seeing military pulling out. One whistleblower says, I saw a military with a dog man in the back of a truck. So, and they know, if you do the search, that there are bases within the area. So, I mean, if they're working on cryptids, or they're, maybe they're assisting, maybe they're wanting super soldiers, who knows? But
Well,
I mean,
that's my thought right there. I mean,
yeah,
let's face it. I mean, dog. I'm gonna throw it out there, like, and I'm gonna be very primitive about it. So excuse me. But certain mammals, they don't mate. Like a dog and a gorilla are not going to mate. They're not going to get together and go, hey, how about a liaison, me and you, right? Not going to happen. However, I think that once you get, science and government and military, and we get that involved, right? And they start splicing DNA and genes and things like that. Then you can create all kinds of stuff. That's where you get these hybrid looking things. I am so sure it doesn't happen naturally. It's not even funny, right?
yeah.
That stuff doesn't happen naturally in the wild. You might get a fox that's got a black coat, and that's a mutated gene or something like that. You are not going to get a gorilla with a dog face.
Nope. But
not naturally.
Nope. They got hybrids. They do. They've got hybrids. People have seen them. So something's definitely going on. It's in Tennessee. And it's just one of these places that people are still disappearing. And
those numbers were astronomical. What Daryl was saying, like he said, the reported number is this, but he goes, I know it's this. I was like, what? And nobody knows about this?
No, and I think there's just things that we're not always going to be made privy to, but the things are happening because people are experiencing it. People are wondering, what happened to my family who went camping here? Like a couple goes camping, they don't return. So it's just, are they, are there certain powers that be that are just allowing this to happen, to
what she said,
keep things.
Wayne no go in the woods no more. Wayne no camp no more.
I know.
Camping day's over. But I wanted to say something about portals and missing things that are kind of related, but not just because we're joking around about it earlier. And the more I thought about it, it was like, I just want to talk about this for a minute because it is freaky. Right. So just for the listeners and the viewers, like I have a shop out back that's like a 20 by 20, right? Enclosed structure. Okay. And I've got all kinds of tools out there, all kinds of like paints and cleaners and everything else, right? So, and I do all kinds of stuff out there: carpentry, plumbing, car work, trailer work, you name it, right? And I was working on Michelle's sister's car, and I needed brake cleaner, which I have copious amounts of brake cleaner. So I went in the shop, and it's usually on this one table at the back. And it's a tall green and black can that's probably 10 or 12 inches tall. You can't miss it. Walk in there, look, can't see it. Can't find it anywhere. I'm like, maybe I put it in a cupboard by the door, because I'm an idiot. Sometimes I do things like that. So I go in and look, it's not there. There's the back of the truck. I don't know why it'd be in the back of the truck, but maybe it's in the back of the truck. I must have spent 45 minutes looking for this thing. I come in the house. She's like, "What's up?" And I'm just like, I can't find the brake cleaner. Like, I'm just like beside myself. Like, I'm a little hyperventilating now because I'm like, I know I've got this thing and I just used it 2 days ago. Like, where could it possibly be? So Michelle's in her infinite wisdom says, "Well, it's got to be somewhere." Well, the surface of Mars is somewhere, but I can't get there.
Shut up.
So anyway, so like we have lunch, and I'm just kind of like doing the old like, where the hell did I put this thing? So I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna use something else. I'll just use something else, and I'll make do. Right? It's okay. I'll figure it out. Right? I got lacquer thinner; it'll do the same thing. Right? So I go outside, right in the middle of that table. As I open the door, 20 feet across, I see that green and black can sitting there under the window, right where I left it. It was not there. That thing was not there, right? Okay, so I either have to be committed because I'm losing my mind, or like, what the bleep is going on? And this is not a one-off. I've told her this a lot of times. Stuff just disappears until I no longer need it, and then boop, there it is, just sitting there.
It's true.
So yeah. Anybody else feels like emailing me and sharing a story about stuff that you can't find until you don't need it, and then it shows up? I'm all about that.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, back to your regular viewing.
Back to regular viewing. All right, rant over.
This wasn't a rant. It's just stuff
I know.
People go missing. My stuff goes missing.
My
like,
stuff
where does it go?
Wow. Wow. Okay, let's get into a little bit of a high strangeness, interesting place of mystery and intrigue. Mount Everest. Okay, so Mount Everest is, boy, what is it about this place that people want to conquer it? It's just
because it's there.
Because it's there.
That's the simplest answer.
Yeah.
It's the biggest. I got to be the biggest, the fastest. I've talked about this a million times.
Yeah.
Why do people cruise in the fast lane? Because it's there.
Because it's there. Heidi says it happened to her today, and it happens often. And Phil says, yeah, his keys go missing twice a day. So
thank you.
You are not alone. Okay, Mount Everest. So here's the deal with this. There have been many stories reported by the Sherpas who regard Everest as being an embodiment and the realm of the gods. Many have felt like climbing this mountain showed disrespect. So because it was just so sacred, and it just led to bad karma and many restless spirits. One Sherpa reported that he encountered what he described as black shapes near the summit. He said that they were the ghosts of climbers who had died on the mountain. He went on to say that the shapes approached him and held out their hands, begging for something to eat. And he felt that these spirits were stuck in, and until a proper blessing could be performed for their souls. Climber Frank Smythe, who attempted Everest several times in the 1930s, offered his own tales. He described encountering two, apparitions or two presences. He said one was very benign and seemed so real that he offered it cake. Later, he encountered a strange hovering object, which he said looked like underdeveloped wings, while another had a beak or a spout like that on a kettle. He said they pulsated and they possessed some horrible quality of life. Some climbers from other mountains have talked about experiences of hearing their friends and other climbers speak to them. So, whatever the case may be, they all feel that, there are still people there. And, chances are you're going to run across something when you're up there. In fact, there was one time where they heard a voice coming through the camp radios. And while the listeners knew that there was no one on the mountain at all. So do we chalk this up? I mean, the Sherpas they're very used to climbing up to these altitudes and, but it makes you wonder, is there any bit of delirium going on where people think you're hearing something because of the oxygen changing a a bit?
I mean, even the pressure at that height, never mind the oxygen. I mean, oxygen deprivation can make you hear things, hallucinate, see things, all kinds. But, You
Yeah.
just know, like driving in your car and you go over a hill, you get the butterflies in your stomach. But
Mhm.
as you drop down the other side, your ears will pop. We're
Yeah.
only talking an elevation of, 100 feet, if
Yeah.
that, and your ears
Yes.
pop. I can't imagine what your
Yes.
physiological self is going through as you go higher and higher, and that pressure changes and changes and changes.
Mhm.
I mean, my ears ring all the time, and I'm just home. Up
Yeah.
there, my ears are probably singing at that point. Hear all kinds
Yes.
of stuff up there, and the wind. Like, how many times do we hear things just through a fan?
I
There's
hear
a
many
just
times people tell me that stuff. I'm like,
yeah.
come on. But you
The
do.
things that travel on the wind is just
Yeah.
unreal.
Yeah, you're not wrong with that one. You're not wrong with
So
that one. Okay, so we're going to hit another mysterious place. And it's funny how some of these places of mystery are also, haunted.
my
But
shop is a
here,
place of mystery.
the Tower of London to me is fascinating. Of course, built by an ancestor, built by William the Conqueror in 1078, 12 years after he conquered the area, and 1066 as part of the Norman conquest. Um, it was expanded on by many future kings of the 12th and 13th centuries. Still contains the crown jewels of the monarchy. It is estimated that roughly 400 people were tortured and executed there. In 1483, the two young princes who were infamously murdered in the tower, their deaths unsolved to this day. I thought I actually read something
They
recently where they
found they
were
found the
found.
bodies. They did
Yeah.
find the bodies.
So they
Yes, they
did
did.
confirm it.
Yep.
So, because at the time they were seeing shadowy figures, seeing holding hands, and they would drift from room to room and melt into the walls. And Catherine Howard, wife of Henry VIII, is said to be there. Anne Boleyn is probably the most famous resident there, also the wife of Henry VIII, was imprisoned and beheaded in 1536. She has often been spotted in many different areas of the tower. Her headless torso paces frequently, spotted in the chapel of St. Peter, where she was buried. Here's where it gets funky. In 1876, a soldier on duty heard commotion in the chapel. He pressed his face to the glass and saw a procession of ghostly lords and ladies, knights in armor, and Anne Boleyn. So, and in fact, Anne Boleyn gets so out of control that for a while they had, sort of regular people who dealt in the paranormal, parapsychology, things like that, who would come in and try to find a way to calm her down.
Well, her execution was so botched. I mean, the first blow hit her in the back of the shoulders, and the second one he tried to compensate, took off the back of her head, and then the third one went through her neck. I mean, that's just
It's
if
botched.
anybody's
Yeah,
if anybody's
I'd be
angst,
mad too.
there's a lot
Yeah.
of angst there, a lot of pain and discomfort. But
Yeah.
I got a story from a friend of mine from the Tower of London,
Okay.
and she would travel by herself all over the place, and she went there because she was fascinated with like the kings and queens and Tower of London and stuff.
Yeah.
And so she's like just cruising on through there, and there was a guide, and she just hung back to take pictures. And she said she heard like a muffled sound, but it was more of she's like, I felt something coming. Like when you're standing at the subway, you can feel the train coming before you ever see it, right?
Yeah.
And she said, I kind of turned around I thought just another security guy or a tour guy was coming up, right?
Mhm.
And she said, it was the size of a small bear, like bigger than a raccoon, smaller than a bear, dark brown to black, furry, running down the hallway between these two chambers.
Hmm.
And she's like, oh my God, I got nowhere to go. So she goes, I pressed myself against the wall, and it went right past her. But she goes, as it went past, it wasn't real. She goes, there was no three-dimensional thump, 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 thump. There was no breathing. There was no gruff. There was nothing. But she goes,
Mhm.
I saw this thing as clear as I'm looking at you telling you the story. Like, and I've heard since then of other people seeing a miniature bear-like thing that's bigger than a raccoon, excuse me, and smaller than a bear.
That's crazy.
I don't know what it is.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Huh. Well, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, they were big into hunting and such, I
I
back
don't know how
then.
it got in there. Whatever that thing is, it's still running around.
Yeah.
It's not
Uh,
corporeal. Put it that way.
no, but
It's
some of the royals would also have, it wasn't uncommon. I mean, you hear through different, um, different royal houses and monarchies throughout the ancient world. It wasn't uncommon to get a wild animal and have it as a pet while it was
oh, for
small,
sure.
so I wonder if it would have, fallen into something along those lines.
Quite
Um,
possible.
okay, here's a wiggy one, guys. It was the apartment block vampire spider. I know.
That is wiggy.
I
That's
know.
just, yeah, that's
And
over the top.
it really
I
is.
don't need that stuff. I don't need to
You,
hear
you
stuff
know,
like that.
you know how we talk about, John Yazzie's been on and talking about the Navajo Nation and they talk about how there are giant spiders there. This is kind of like one of those things. So here's the story. Okay, an account that began circulating online in the 1990s when a man was found slumped over dead within a dilapidated tower block. Allegedly, he was found sprawled out in an elevator and was noted that he had 2 puncture wounds in the neck, which was yellowish bruise, and had some just suffered extreme blood loss to the point of almost being like sucked dry, literally. There were no signs of foul play or forced entry. So, a rumor of a vampire began circulating shortly after the mysterious death of a 13-year-old girl whose body was found trapped in the elevator, which was stuck between the 4th and 5th floors of this building, the same elevator that the prior victim was found in. Body was completely drained of blood, puncture wounds in her breast, the same bruising as the first victim. So, a detective and police sergeant were assigned to the case and spent several days on patrol, riding up and down the elevator. One day, the elevator stopped between the 5th and 6th floors, and the lights went out. They radioed their colleagues, told them of their development, and awaited rescue. They both heard clicking sounds, because we haven't heard that before, clicking sounds from above. As they looked up, they saw a very furry head about the size of a man's fist looking down at them. So they drew their pistols and flashlights and noticed the thing seemed to be cowering from the light. So they turned off the light and the thing shifted, showing itself to be a giant spider with a 3 foot long legs. It proceeded down into the elevator and attacked the sergeant. The man put the flashlight back on and the spider was scared off. They did, however, manage to shoot one of its legs off. The sergeant died from blood loss. A Turkish newspaper reported that a lair had been found with multiple large eggs having been found. And again, the Chernobyl disaster comes to light. I know.
Yeah. Do you know how many crawl spaces and stuff I've been through in my life just
Yeah.
like that? Never thought of anything of it. Like I could have died.
No.
No. Mm-mm. Thank you for that. Nightmares tonight.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
It's just like, oh my God. Oh, it was crazy. Okay. I'm going to talk about this one as well because it's been brought up a couple times by guests, by myself, but people have asked a lot of questions about it. So I'm just going to tell you what I know about it and leave it there. So it's Lake Anjukuni, basically Nunavut, Canada, the legend of the vanishing village. Okay. So this is one of Canada's longest lasting unsolved cases. And it happened in the winter of 1930, November to be precise. An entire village of men, women, and children disappeared. It's believed that hundreds of people went missing. A fur trapper named Joe LaBelle happened on the camp and noticed that everyone was gone. He noticed that there were still needles and unfinished shirts, that the food was hanging over fire pits, the graves had been opened, the bodies removed, and rocks stacked neatly next to 2 of the graves, to which were undisturbed. Officials did not believe this to be the work of animals, as tools would have been required to dig through the hard frozen ground. A pack of sled dogs were found nearby, dead from starvation, which unnerved the Mounties, being the police, as there was a massive storage of food and shelter only meters away from where they died. Even if they were tied, as some suggest. The village had only been abandoned for a few short hours, yet these dogs died quickly and were buried under 12 feet of snow. After long investigations, officers used, basically buried that they were found nearby, the buried that were found nearby suggested that the villagers had been gone 2 or 3 months. Therefore, who was using the village in their absence, because it was stocked with food, clothing, goods were all accounted for. Officials noted that it was odd for them to leave their weapons and provisions behind. Therefore, a seasonal abandonment didn't make a lot of sense. Neighboring villages reported seeing lights over the village on the evening leading up to the disappearances. That's all they know.
Yeah, that's still an ongoing thing up in that area. They don't have any answers. There's nothing.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, the only thing I can come up with that is some sort of a time shift, a dimensional time shift thing, because the dogs died of starvation, but it only looked like they died like hours earlier, and yet they're under 12 feet of snow. And the fires were still not burning, but if you put your hand in the ashes, there was still heat. There was still warmth, So
doesn't it remind you? Doesn't it remind you of the story?
Yes.
That your old friend Rob used to talk about? Do you want to retell that story? Because
it's
that's
similar.
a wiggy story, and this happened out near Eastern Ontario, Canada again. Near what would be
Canada. It was
Eastern Ontario. Sorry,
North
Ste. Marie.
That's not east though. That's north. Way. Yeah, that's sort of northwest. Yeah,
right, northwest.
He's a long distance. He was a long distance truck driver, and he did this route. He hauled logs out of the north and down to the mills, and then back up again. Right, so he knew the roads back and forth. It was the same thing he did all the time. And he said this one day he was coming back, and there was this rest stop. There was a diner, the old sort of a 50s looking diner in the 70s, if you know what I mean. So, and you get gas, you can get, like, there was a sports shop in there, you get, fishing tackle and food and whatever you wanted, right? You can get it from this little stop, right? And so he pulls in, he hops out of the truck, lights are on, cars are out there, a lot of people going in and out kind of thing. It looked like that sort of a setup. Anyway, he got out, he undid the gas cap, and he waited. And he waited, and he waited, and he waited. And he said, in typical trucker language, which I won't use. He said, he's like, I'll go in and find the kid. He's probably napping, and he went in there, and because I think he said it was like breakfast time. And he went in there, and there was nobody in the gas bar. There was nobody in the service center. Like, he said, where's everybody? So he walks from the service center through the door into the diner. And he goes, and the diner was like lit up, and like there was food on the tables. There was like bacon on the grill, and it was burning, and the coffee machine was overflowing, and everything was sizzling. And he's like, hello, anybody here? He looked into the kitchen. There was no one. There was nobody there. All the cars were in the parking lot, and the lights were on, and food was there. Nobody there at all. He was just like, hair's like, boop. He's like,
because the food's on the grill,
it's burning. He's just like, this is the part of the movie where people go investigate in the backyard and get killed. So he goes, like, I literally ran from that place. I ran to my truck and threw that gas cap on. I gave it 2 spins, and that was it. In the truck, fired it up, and I was gone. And he said, I drove, there was no cell phones. I couldn't call anybody. I drove to the next town, like 50 miles up the road. And I got out of the payphone. I called the local detachment and said, look, man, the Ontario Provincial Police. He's like, you got to go to check this place out. I just came from there, and there's something going on. Like, the place looks like there should be 25 people in there with all the cars and stuff, and there's nobody there. Food's burning on the grill, and there's not a soul around. Here's my phone number when I get home. If you got to talk to me, if you need a witness, like, let me know. And nobody ever called him. They said they were going to go check it out, and no one ever called his house to tell him, oh yeah, we found a bunch of dead people, or we got there and everybody was okay. We don't know what you're talking about. You're a cracker, But he tells that story with such horror on his face. Like, the color just drains when he talks about that story. It just drains away. Like, it's just, if he's making it up, he should get an Oscar, because that guy's scared when he tells that story.
See that? Yeah, that's sort of wiggy. I mean, there are places like that around, and you hear about it all the time. Food's on the grill, the plates are on the table. I remember, um, I remember a story. Um, this location was probably only a couple of hours from me, and I grew up north, right? And it was a cottage that was in the woods, and it belonged to one of the members of the Dodge family. So not necessarily one of the wealthiest, but they were okay because there was a grand piano in this cottage. There was, like fully stocked, just beautiful, beautiful place. And they had food set out for lunch. They had fresh flowers on the table, and they went out to, to have a boat, a little boat ride, a little rowboat. They went out for a little boat ride, and nobody came back for years. This place was always just untouched. And people were looking for these people, like, oh, okay, well, the boat's gone, so they're just out. They're just out. They fell out, they drowned, like something. They looked and they looked and they looked and they looked, and it was never found. They were never found, but nobody ever came looking. Like, there were things in this place because it was the family Dodge motor car.
I was going to
Like,
say, you're talking about Dodge motor cars in Dodge, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
this wasn't some little shack in the woods. This was
No.
a place that they weren't like the main, probably extended of the carriage company at the time, but it was way, way back. I mean, you're probably looking at early 1900s, maybe the 30s and around there. Like, they never found these people, and nobody ever went looking.
Mm-mm.
So, it's kind of like, so what? People disappear. There've been tons of stories like that. So where do they all go?
Wayne, don't go out to the woods no more.
It's the woods near the water. I don't
Nope.
know. It gets really crazy. But I don't know. Okay, so we have the suicide forest. I have been asked to talk about this before. I talk a lot about Hoya Baciu, but there are also a couple of, there's forests are haunted. And if they're like old forests, of which everything is, but you hear the tales when you're like Hoya Baciu in Romania. So much has happened, but there have been so many people who have lived there and communicated their stories. Not that things like this don't happen on this side of the world, but the indigenous had their oral history where you get over to more populated areas that had been taken over, and people just basically coming in with their superstitions and everything else. The stories get told. One of these places I'll talk about two. I'll start off with the suicide forest at Mount Fuji, Japan, which sits at the base, obviously, of Mount Fuji. The Japanese mythology has long been associated with this very dense leafy woodland, and many historical links between the forest and the demons from Japanese folklore. It's believed to be littered with demons, apparently. It's the most popular place for suicides in Japan. It is sometimes referred to as the Sea of Trees. So explorers feel prompted to drop items along the way, much like Hansel and Gretel did, to ensure that they found their way back. Many insist that those who took their own lives have stayed on to haunt the forest. It's said that even if you don't believe in ghosts, you are likely to be spooked by the everyday items that litter the forest floor, left behind by those who became lost there or those who never intended to leave. Park rangers check the forest on a daily basis, looking for the lost and removing the dead. Reports of a very malicious force come out of this forest. Some suggest that it's a residual misery of those who came to take their lives with great success, and others are just tales which describe harrowing howls and moving shadows, sounds, just everything. And again, I can't even imagine looking at everyday items that sort of get lost and left behind, like cell phones and notebooks and pieces of clothing, So it's just sort of, it's sad that people go here. I look at a forest as just a place of peace and comfort, a place to ground your energy, and a place to just you know, just blend, talk to the trees, talk to the forest. People don't realize that trees will talk to you and the
Mhm.
elementals will communicate with you. There's a whole different world in there.
Yeah, there is. I don't know enough about that whole thing. Anything I've ever seen, I've seen on documentaries. But it is moving. When you talk to some of these park rangers that have been in,
Mhm,
they had a career there,
mhm.
and these guys are just like every person we find that's gone is just this makes you realize how many
Fragile.
people take their life.
Yeah.
And he
Mhm,
was talking about one guy. He goes, we check on this one guy, pretty much every day, and he's in a little tent.
mhm,
He's out there, and are you all right? Do you need help? No, I'm all right. I don't need
mhm,
help. Do you have food? Yes, I have food. Can you show it to us?
mhm.
That's right here. Okay, good. You have water? Yes, I have water. Show it to us. Okay. And he goes, at that point, we can't do anything,
No.
right? If they have shelter, they have food and water,
Mhm,
and they're not asking for assistance, we can't drag them out.
mhm.
So he goes, all we can do is keep checking on them. And he goes, I know at some point I'm going to come back and that guy's not going to be with us anymore.
No,
And it's
it's
just like,
true.
oh,
Yeah,
hurts,
it's
hurts.
very sad. It's very, very sad. Um, Sarnia has a reputation for paranormal activity, with many local buildings rumored to be haunted, including the historical Imperial Theater, the Lawrence House, the Great Lakes Secondary School. Wayne has family out in Sarnia.
And my
Yeah,
sister lives right there, right in
I've got
Sarnia.
yeah, I have a couple of friends out there. So yes, definitely road trip.
Yeah, she's definitely my witchy sister for sure.
Yeah.
She's really gifted. Yeah. The gift passed the tree stump when I was born, and that was that. So my sisters are both pretty with it. Not so much here.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Um, okay,
Oh,
we're going to talk about the Black Forest in Germany.
the
This
cake. Oh
is
no, sorry.
I know. This is another one of these really crazy haunted places. A dense forest of fir and pine trees, tightly packed, fairly hard to really see light get in there. Like it's dark, 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 dark. Hence the Black Forest. The Brothers Grimm chose the Black Forest as a fairy tale backdrop due to its foreboding dark appeal. The forest is tied to tales of werewolves, headless horsemen, witches, magicians, and apparently the devil himself. There are even said to be a few kind hearted dwarves in the forest. There are also tales of hauntings, killings, dark magic. Visitors come also in hopes of spotting the ghost of kings and queens. So, near the now vanished village of Wolmerspur, that's a tongue twister, Wolmerspur, a headless horseman takes his ride once a year on a great white steed. Iber Castle is home to the beautiful ladies visible only at night and a legendary wine cellar that no one has ever been able to find. There are also tales of maiden nymphs who dwell in the murky waters of Muma Lake, sharing space with an undead king who is reputed to kidnap women and take them to his underwater lair. Because that doesn't sound foreboding.
No, that's no. Well, you
Yeah,
don't go into the forest. I keep
I
telling you.
know. Black Forest cake. Now Carrie wants one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, right there.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you
Y-
on that.
yeah. But it
Yeah, but
makes it.
forests are magical. I mean, if you go back in time, like people had a genuine fear and respect of a forest because you're going in there and you don't know what you're going to face. What's in there? I mean, I was talking natural things like bear and elk and moose and things like that. They will kill you. Everything in a forest will kill you. You know, and
Pretty
that's
much,
that.
yeah,
Never
I
mind the
can.
supernatural stuff that's down there.
Mhm.
Like you step on the wrong toes, you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
No, it is true, 100%. That's where all the lore comes from. When I was doing research on vampires and stuff, I was blown away where the lore all comes from. It's pretty neat. And I always say there's like this much truth. And it gets
Yeah.
bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But it starts from there. Good
Yes.
old Fred went into the forest to bring back a lettuce and never came back.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
No, it's it's true. I think that it's just one of those places that's easy to get lost in, and you always hear these tales. But I mean, if you think about it too, when you're looking at different cryptids, there's these forests are very dense.
Hmm.
And they're huge and they're unexplored. I mean, there are cave systems that go forever. I mean, you can go in and go to some of these, you know, really old cities in Europe. I've been to like so many. It's so blessed. Just because I feel at home around really like old places and old things. I know.
And thus my presence is here.
I know. See right there.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I mean, I I get fascinated by things that I read where people go down into their basement, open this door behind a cabinet that they didn't know existed, and basically walk into an entire, underground city that holds 20,000 people. It's like, well, crud, that's pretty darn amazing. But I mean, it wasn't uncommon for the ancient people to build city over top of old cities and over the ruins of other cities. And the same happened with cemeteries. And you'd run out of space, you would just keep building upward, But in the forests, and people are not building in there. There's a lot of underwater, or not underwater, underground caverns. There's the entrances to inner earth, as they say. Who knows? But that's why things can go in there and hide so easily. You get a forest, you have lakes, you have caves, tunnels.
And a lot of people like that were being persecuted at any given time, they took refuge in the forest, right? They,
Yeah.
yeah, see, but
Yeah.
you'd
Yeah.
hide in the forest, but then what they would do is they would find, a crack in the earth, when they would
Mm,
open that up and there'd be a massive cave system in there.
mm,
So then they realized, wow, we barely found this. They won't find us. So they opened it up just enough to get everybody inside,
mhm,
right? And then they close it off again, right? And they just hid in there because that
mhm,
was, and they find evidence, especially in England. I'm sure, Eastern Europe and Western Europe is the same. Like it's just so old that if
mhm,
some of these places they just happen upon,
mhm.
urban explorers happen upon like, wow, look at that, well, that rock doesn't look natural. And they roll it
Right.
aside and they go down like a couple of steps, like literally steps carved into the ground. And it opens up and there's columns and there's seating and there's little areas notched out for candles, never been seen in years and years.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
wild. All this stuff is coming to light now. It's just wild.
And it's a great place. I mean, a lot of these places, you'd have druids, through different parts of the world and different ancient civilizations or cultures that would go in there, and this is where they would find the power spots. I mean,
Mhm.
you see so much of that. They would build their temples or altars in and around here, and that just adds to that allure. There are some places out there though that are just forest or not. There's just something about them. Have you guys ever heard of? It's called the Overton Bridge in West Derbyshire in Scotland. This is the one where dogs
Yes.
commit suicide. Okay,
Yeah.
here's the story with this. It's quite sad, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. The bridge is located near the village of Milton in West Derbyshire. Dunbartonshire. God, it should have made you say that word. It said that the
Hi.
I it said that the phenomenon of attracting suicidal dogs began in the early 1960s. So, in the grand scheme of things, you're not even really talking like centuries or anything of that nature. So, what happened to change the dynamics of this place? Or maybe it just wasn't reported. Anyway, according to reports, there have been more than 600 dogs which have jumped to their deaths as they land 50 feet below on the rocks. Oddly enough, the dogs that did survive actually returned to the same spot to try to jump a second time. So, the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals had sent representatives to investigate. They were all left bewildered and attempted to jump from the bridge themselves. So they were able to save themselves somehow, and the mystery remains to this very day. Many locals believe the bridge is cursed. Another sad tale occurred October 1994 was that of a man who threw his 2-week-old baby over the bridge as he believed him to be the incarnation of the devil. Witnesses have claimed to see various types of supernatural beings at the bridge. So what do you make of that?
I mean, without a historic background, it's really hard to pick it apart. Me
Yeah.
and like buildings and structures and things like that. Like I would want to know, okay, so where's the bridge located? What's it going over? Why was it built? What was
Yeah.
there beforehand?
Yeah.
Was there a battle between two great armies that finished up in that valley fighting each other? Because
Mm.
anytime there's a mass extinguish of life in a violent manner, I find that the dark forces tend to like to hang around that place. I mean, was the land acquired illegally? Like somehow. I mean, it happens all the time. It happened to my parents' place.
Mhm.
The government comes in. Okay, we're going to build a bridge. You're out. What about our property? It doesn't matter. Get out. So I mean, people back then would be like, "Oh yeah, you're going to kick me out. I'm going to curse your bridge.
Mhm.
I'm going to destroy every person that ever crosses that bridge." And they mean it. Like intention is a powerful thing. You get enough person with enough angst,
Mhm.
hatred, emotion to go after these things, you could put something in place that could stay decades.
Mhm.
But if it only started in the 60s, like you say, maybe it was never reported. But I mean, if people are going there, like I want to say, like educated people are going there to find out why animals are killing themselves, and they themselves want to kill themselves, there's something weird. There's definitely something weird going on.
Yeah, it's really sad. Like when you think about it, it's just like, I mean, animals, people, there are places that are just wrong,
Oh yeah, there are.
you
Oh, for
know.
sure there are.
I mean, you can get into the different triangles, you can get into, different like power spots. Um, Phil
I mean, look
says
at the
it must be scent related, you would think, with dogs. I wonder.
could be frequency related. They
Well,
hear
that's what
they can
Carrie
hear
said.
anything, right?
Yeah, she goes, what are they hearing to do this? Frequency, like when whales beach themselves, for example, when they're drilling under the ocean, seismic activity.
Exactly. They could be hearing something completely
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's we will use the D word, if it's the demonic, and they can mimic anything. They could mimic their owner's, their master's voice in distress, and the
Mm,
dog jumps to try to
who
save them.
knows? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I
Hmm.
mean, that one office that I worked at, you talk about being wrong. That basement is wrong. It's two old buildings. One is newer than the other half,
Hmm.
but you go in the old half in the basement, and that basement's just a mess. Like you walk down there, and you don't even know which way is west anymore. Like you
Hmm.
can't figure out where you are in that basement. You come upstairs, you feel fine.
Hmm.
It's just a mess.
So you could look at, is there a lot of quartz underground,
That's what I
running
mean. You'd have to
water,
look at it and see, right?
limestone. So sometimes, the whole, um, geometric stuff, sometimes it's the geology
Hmm.
because quartz amplifies, limestone will hold a memory. Large levels of EMF, like Will was saying, absolutely will.
Hmm. Well, if
Carbon
there was water
monoxide,
running,
that
there was water
amplifies.
running through there at one time, and now it's
Yeah.
not. It's gone underground. Water running through underground rocks and caverns would create all kinds of sounds
Hmm.
that we wouldn't hear.
No.
Chances are a dog would hear it, birds would
So,
hear it.
so it leads me to think: is there something they're creating an infrasound?
Who is they?
Cryptids are known. I
Oh,
mean, they're saying
cryptids, right
there's
on, yeah.
well, they're saying there's all kinds of supernatural beings and stuff that have been seen there or witnessed there. So how do we know? Maybe it's infrasound because
It
that could
could
really
be.
mess you up.
Oh, it sure can. Yeah, it absolutely can mess you up.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. Well, let's just jump around a little bit with some other interesting stuff. Let's talk about the Devil's Codex. I was asked again, you know, do something on this. There's really you can't really do a whole show on something like this, but it is really fascinating. So the Devil's Codex, of course, which is most commonly known, refers to the Codex Gigas. What again? No clue. The largest medieval manuscript in existence, and this thing is huge.
it's a big
Also
book.
called the Devil's Bible, created in the 13th century in Bohemia. It includes a complete Latin Vulgate Bible along with other texts like encyclopedic, historical, and magical articles. It's crazy. It's got everything in it. The nickname comes from a legend that a monk sold his soul to the devil to help him complete the huge manuscript in a single night. The book also famously features a full-page illustration of the devil. The size, apparently, it's the largest surviving medieval illuminated manuscript in the world, measuring 92 centimeters in length. And again, 13th century, was created early 13th century by a Benedictine monastery of Podlazies in Bohemia, nicknamed Devil's Bible. Appearance, it looks like elaborate illuminations in red, blue, yellow, green, gold. Apparently, it was said to have been done in a night. So 92 centimeters was like 3 feet. Like,
I was trying to figure that out. I don't know. I don't know my centi whatnots.
it's huge.
I'm a
This thing,
carpenter.
this thing had been in, was in a building that caught on fire. The only thing that didn't burn apparently was this thing, this Bible, this book.
You know what I find most fascinating about that book? If it's because it's been scrutinized by people that know a hell of a lot more than
Yes.
what I know.
And me. Yeah.
The person, they said the handwriting is exactly the same from letter 1 to letter end. It's the same handwriting.
Yeah.
All the way through. Like, it doesn't change. Like,
Yeah.
my handwriting has changed over the last couple of years.
And if you get tired, you get lazy. Yeah. And
For
it
sure.
gets sloppy.
But it's perfect all the way through.
Yeah.
They said even if this person didn't do it in one night, and they did it over 10 years, the writing would change, and it doesn't change. It's exact. It's perfect all the way along. That's incredible to me. That's very compelling. If you wrote a letter to a friend that's 1 page long, by the time you got down to it, there would be discrepancies. Things would be different. They'd be out of shape. Like the tail on the Y would be longer than 2 lines up, etc. This wasn't. Nothing. No mistakes. No nothing. There was not autocorrect back then. There was no whiteout. So
that's true.
That's pretty impressive.
It's very impressive. It makes you wonder. There are stranger things that have happened in the world. I just sit back and think, okay, that's a thing and a half. So again, one of those mysterious things that you'll never know for sure.
Nope.
Here's a little tidbit for those who may not have known. Padre Pio actually believed in extraterrestrial beings. While the world is focused on the Roman Catholic Church's antiquated traditions of selecting a new pope, there are the Vatican insiders and notable Catholic saints and leaders who have been far beyond, right? I mean, they're just far beyond the Vatican walls and traditions. Padre Pio is was the most recognized Catholic priest to publicly express his belief in intelligent life beyond Earth. Right. And he bare the stigmata on the palms of his hand and was declared a saint in 2002. And there were 2 statements on extraterrestrial life that he was said to have done. The Lord certainly did not limit his glory to this small earth. On other planets, other beings exist who did not sin and fall as we did. Then he goes on to say, do you think they, being aliens, don't exist and that God's omnipotence is limited to the small planet Earth? What else? Do you think that there are no other beings who love the Lord? I thought that was so well put, because he was just so revered and people just respected him so much and looked to him for guidance. And this was way back when he said this.
I think when you're enlightened, regardless of your religious stature, I think you're more open. You're more open to the idea of numerous things like aliens and cryptids and all kinds of stuff. I think it's just part of you. I mean, the fact that he had the stigmata, and they tried to debunk that they watched him all the time. They had his hands in mitts and bandaged up, and they never took their eyes off him. He never touched the wounds, and they'd take it off a week later and they'd start bleeding again. It's wild. It's like, how does it even happen? I guess it's incredible, that kind of stuff.
It is. And
why that guy? Like, why did that guy get afflicted or blessed, however you want to look at it, with
Yeah.
these marks, these wounds. Can't tell me they don't hurt. I got a blister on my hand and it hurts for days.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. I can't imagine. I
Mhm.
can't imagine. Okay, moving along. The Superstition Mountains.
I was there.
Yeah. It's an incredible place, isn't it?
It is. It is wild.
Looks like a giant tree stump. We can talk to Arteria sometime. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
they are arranged in Arizona, which Arizona itself is known for just crazy stuff. You know, you can go in and see remnants of lost civilizations that really don't belong here. That's a whole other show, getting into
Mhm.
that in the Grand Canyon, and we shall. We shall, because there's so much information. I thought about putting some of that stuff into the show, but I knew we just wouldn't have time. It's a
We'd run out of
show in
time.
itself. Yeah, it's a show in
Yeah.
itself, and we will do it, I promise. But essentially, located east of the Phoenix metropolitan area, the mountains offer scenic views, petroglyphs, outdoor activities, blah, blah, blah. Goes on. And it's an area also associated with Apache legends and has a history of volcanic activity. And it's also has legends such as the lost Dutchman mine. Now,
Yeah.
did they find that the Dutchman gold? Didn't they find it?
No.
The young
No.
man that was mining, or I thought he said the one who's on Blind Frog Ranch, that young man, the
Yeah,
geologist
I know
guy.
who you meant. Like
Yeah.
they said they've got a good idea
Oh,
where it is,
okay.
but they haven't got it. They
Okay.
haven't got it. And the problem is now it's not that land is not privately owned anymore. It's like government. You can't go on it. You can't
Ah,
go. They've got the mining
okay.
rights. You can't just go poking around. There's no way.
Wow. Yeah.
And everything in Arizona will kill you. I mean, when I went walking through that
Yeah.
up to
Yeah.
the Superstition Mountains, there were signs as big as a Cadillac with a list that was as big as a Cadillac of everything in that park that will kill you. And it was vast and long.
Yeah.
Don't walk here, don't walk there, don't open stones, don't turn things over, don't lift up pieces of wood, don't touch this, don't touch that. This will kill you. I was just like, wow, that's crazy. What am I doing here?
I'm not leaving the car. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, we don't go walking in Arizona no more.
it's incredible, you know. And I mean, we'll lead over to like I had mentioned Blind Frog Ranch, which
Mhm.
is not too far from Skinwalker Ranch, and of course, if you go down the other side to the Navajo Nation, which is a few hours away from Skinwalker Ranch, there's this whole mesa that just kind of goes all the way along, and
Yeah.
it's all mysterious, and there are said to be entrances to the inner earth. I mean, Donna said the Navajo Nation, yes, they absolutely believe that they have entrances there. Heck, even if we go back to Land Between the Lakes, not far from that, there's different places that enter into allegedly inner earth. So it stands to reason. You look at Blind Frog Ranch, and they're looking at all this Aztec stuff, and looking at the Aztec maps, entrances into Middle Earth, which means Skinwalker Ranch very possibly could have entrances there. And you wonder why things are going on. Are there things underground?
Mhm.
I don't know. It's one of these, that whole mesa, that whole area for hundreds of miles
Yeah.
is, that just to state is insane.
But it's the same thing, like when we're talking what Mark was saying in the chat there, just
Mhm.
about the steel doors or iron doors
Yeah.
in the
Mm.
Dyatlov Pass, right? I mean, I watched Skinwalker Ranch for a while. It gets a bit monotonous at times, but when they were trying to dig the borehole,
Mhm.
directional boring into the side of the mesa,
Mm.
they hit a dome, and it literally directed the drill bit around it. They couldn't penetrate it, right?
That's
So,
true.
like, is the dome the opening to inner earth, and it's just been sealed off by, maybe that's why Bigelow was there to begin with, to seal it off from the
But if you
public.
think that there was a way in and that they knew it, that Bigelow wouldn't have kept it.
Well, Bigelow is only as good as the military says he is, right? Like,
Yeah.
here's the deal. We can seal it up and you can make millions of dollars, or we can bury you out here. What do you want to do? I take
Yeah.
option A, millions of dollars, and I live another day.
Door
You
number
know what I
one
mean?
it
It could be
is.
simply
Yeah.
like that, right? Because you
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, we know so little about this
Mhm.
planet, where we live, about us, And what we know has been carefully spoon-fed to us like pablum, right? And that is that, you know? It is literally a need-to-know basis, and the masses don't need to know, period.
You are not wrong with that by any means.
That's a first.
You know, yeah, ha ha. Which leads us to this last location, which is Mount Shasta. This is a place that people, I mean, oh my God, people rave about this place, and it is believed to be the home of the ancient Lemurians. So it has a mix of everything. So basically, it's a active stratovolcano, 14,000 feet tall, located in California, 60 miles south of the Oregon border, which runs all the way from BC, Canada to Northern California. The Native Americans believe that it is inhabited by a spirit chief who descended from the heavens. They feel it's very sacred, in the center of the universe, in fact. So, one of the most famous legends that surround it is that there are a series of complex tunnels beneath it. And we know there's also, military base underneath it. But anyway, um, there is a series of complex tunnels which lead to a lost city of Telos, home to the Lemurian civilizations and other have argued even Atlantis itself. I'm kind of having an Antarctica feel about this. Anyway, the locals still believe that the Lemurians live under the volcano. The lost city in 1904, one of the first documented accounts that was of J.C. Brown, a British prospector employed by Lord Cowdray Mining Company of London. While looking for gold, he was said to have discovered a lost underground city. He had found a cave which sloped downwards for 11 miles. At the end of that tunnel, there was an underground village filled with gold, strange hieroglyphs, mummies, shields, some being 10 feet tall. He allegedly left with nothing, and seemed to disappear for 30 years before resurfacing and telling his story to John Root, who in turn set up an expedition with 80 people. JC was a no-show and was never heard from again. Disappearances. 1999, Carl Herbert Landers disappeared during a climbing trip. He was said to be an experienced outdoorsman, left teams baffled as they were unable to find any trace of him. He was never seen again. Another man called Devontae Morgan is one of the more recent disappearances, going back to 2020, while walking down Mount Shasta Boulevard. He seemed to have vanished without a trace and has not been seen since. UFOs believed to have have a power spot. So this is believed to be a power spot for UFOs, which is said to attract you, like UFOs, obviously. There have been many reports from eyewitnesses who have seen lights and crafts over the mountain and even going inside of it.
Yeah, there was a pilot back, I can't remember now, my memory's just done. But it was a private pilot that saw a number of craft going in and around the mountain. It was one of the first documented sort of, quote, flying saucers that was taken seriously by this guy. He photographed them.
Wow.
From his plane. It was just a single engine, single wing plane. It's pretty interesting. I found it fascinating to see that. But the one that got me was the two explorers that went up the mountain, and they said, they were told by the local natives not to go beyond the tree line because it's sacred. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, okay, we'll see how it goes, right? So they went up beyond the tree line, and they reported encountering what they called the Shining Ones. And these beings were all gold, and they shone like the sun. And they said, would you like to come with us? And they were like, oh, no, we're good. We're okay. And they turned around and they went back the way they came.
That is not surprising, because there have been people who have written about and witnessed the Shining Ones going back, for centuries. And they are believed to be possibly Lemurians. And of course, so they're believed to be people from the stars as well.
That was the first story I ever heard documented talking about the Shining Ones. Like I said, I'm not I'm
Yeah.
not well versed in this stuff at all, but I found it
Yeah.
fascinating that they wrote it all down, and this is what we saw, and this is what they said, and we thought it best not to go with them, so we came back.
Well, and we're going to leave it right there because honestly, we could go on and on and on, and we will have other open discussions. I can tell you we've got one more coming up in December, and we will have one every month, at least one. In fact, guys, you know what? For January, what we thought would be fun is we would share our January 1st with you guys. So we will have an open mic because it falls on a Thursday night, and that's January the 1st. So not the 31st, which is, the big celebratory night, but we're going to have an open mic for you guys instead of taking the day off because realistically, we have Christmas Eve, we've got Christmas, we have New Year's Eve, and those will all be replays because those are all really busy family days. But people kick back a little bit on New Year's Day by the time 9 p.m. Eastern comes around. So we're going to come up with something fun for you guys. Now, tomorrow night is going to be, of course, it's Thanksgiving in the US of A, and we're going to have a replay. And I have to say, I chose this one because I know some people missed it. And it's something that I went on to do other shows about. It's with David Lee Jones. If you haven't seen it, you have to see it. You have to watch it. It's called Blue Light, a harrowing true account of supernatural contact. Now, as AI becomes, a very big part of humanity's everyday lives, so much so that one can now use it in some of these apps and programs to create a deceased loved one to assist with the grieving process. They're like grieving apps, and it's AI. There's a belief, however, that this can lead to invitations without awareness for darker entities to infiltrate your life in the guise of not just a loved one, but maybe, a new AI friend. So the book was amazing. I highly recommend it. I mean, as a host, I thought it was just like, wow, I do highly recommend it. Um, and you know what, guys? Things are not always as I seem. Maybe they're worse. Maybe they're worse. So this is one of those things that there are stories starting to surface where people are starting to have, I guess, excessive paranormal activity from being in communication with these things. If you can use an app for spirit communication, like the Ghost Radar, and there's all kinds of them. If you can do it with a voice recorder, if your television could be, and your lights can be affected. There's just electronic devices. But what do you do when something has a bit of an intelligence and something else comes in and takes over?
Mm-hmm.
Very fascinating. Friday, you guys can find me on Ethereal Encounters with Carol Ann Idarola. The topic, the Akashic Record. Did Helena Blavatsky truly access the universal memory? Oh, that's going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern. So check that out. Monday night, I am the moderator host with Daryl Denton and, of course, Ron Moorhead. And they're going to be taking a deeper look into Daryl's Dogman encounter in the land between the lakes. Oh. So you want to hear about land between the lakes? Yeah, terrifying. You want to tune into that show? That will be 10 p.m. Eastern for 1 hour. The show is bi-weekly. Wednesday, I guess I should jump to Tuesday. My friend Jason Hewlett joins me to talk about his latest book, Heart of Ice, Tracking the Wendigo, as well as his work with Small Town Monsters on their film, Tracking the Wendigo. So you're going to get to see a trailer with that, and Jason's going to talk about all of that. So it's going to be fascinating. Okay, then we get into Wednesday night. Marilyn Hughes returns. You guys know her for all of her NDE and out of body stuff. She's not, NDE, out of body experiences as well. And she's going to be talking about her book, Rites of Passage. So, going to be a fabulous show. And lastly, Thursday, a lot of shows coming up. Thursday, Maxim Furyk returns to discuss UFOs and the esoteric connection. So, that's going to be another fabulous show. So, guys, tomorrow, happy Thanksgiving to all of you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And please, if you're able to, Yeah, New Year's Day. Woohoo. Yeah, Janie. And yes. So if you're able to catch the replay, please do. If I am able, I will pop into chat. But if not, I'll be with you in spirit. Definitely, definitely have a listen. So thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving. Have a great weekend. Hopefully, I'll see you guys on Ethereal Encounters this coming Friday. And big
Good evening, everyone. Good night.
bye. Night.